Welcome to a special offering by Conversations with a Wounded Healer, the Burnt Out Practice Owner. This series will discuss the current state of group practice ownership, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll hear current and former practice owners' tales of glory and woe as we attempt to answer the ultimate question, why do we do this to ourselves? And we want to hear from you too. What have been your biggest moments of struggle or triumph? What are questions you want us to explore? I'm your host, Sarah Bueno. I owned and operated my practice Head Heart Therapy for 10 years before selling in 2023. Ownership was an equally grueling and rewarding experience for me, and I now spend my time helping current practice owners find balance for themselves. Join us between releases of Conversations with a Wounded Healer for this special series. Hello, and welcome to the Burnt Out Practice Owner. Happy to have you here. It's summer in Chicago, which means it's hot as hell. So I hope wherever you are in the world, you're staying cool and comfortable right now. So if you like the show, and I'm guessing if you're here, you like it. So thanks for being here. And if you want to help, you can rate and review this podcast on ratethispodcast.com/woundedhealer. You could share the podcast with a friend. You could hire me if you're a group practice owner, because I do consulting for group practices. And if you just want to say hi or give me an exciting, awesome idea for the podcast, you can reach out to me on Instagram at headheartbiztherapy or by email at sarah@headheartbiztherapy.com. So today is a very special day. I'm very excited to share this. I mean, I'm excited about all episodes, but this one in particular is very personal to me because it's my dear friend and colleague, Rayell Grayson. So for those who've listened to the initial episode of Burnt Out Practice Owner, Rayell was my executive director, and I sold my baby Head Heart Therapy to her, and she's thriving, you guys. She's thriving. And I think she's doing a lot better job than I am. And I've talked about that in a couple episodes. I talk about that in this, but this was really special to me. My relationship with Rayell is very special to me. And it's funny. We'll talk about, I interviewed her for Conversations with a Wounded Healer a couple years ago. And that bitch was so not vulnerable. I was like, you got to be vulnerable. This podcast is about vulnerability. She's like, okay, wasn't vulnerable at all. But you know what, y'all? With this one, she showed up with her full heart, and you get to feel the Rayell that I know. And she's probably terrified. Actually, she's probably not even going to listen to this. So, but you can tell her how great you think she is. And we get into the truth about what it was like for her to step into ownership from, somebody else who had built the practice, the things that I would tell her, like, this is really hard, this really sucks. And she was like, it's not going to be that bad. And then she stepped into it and was like, oh my God, now I understand what you feel. So for practice owners who have stepped away, this is a little vindication for us all to hear that, like, I told you so, and that you were right. And for people who are thinking about practice ownership, I think this is a good episode to listen to because you can hear Rayell talk about the pre, what she thought it was going to be, and the post, what it actually was. I think she's the perfect person to kind of help people figure out if that's really what you need. So I hope you really enjoy my conversation with Rayell. So Rayell Grayson is the owner and president of Head Heart Therapy. I love saying that. She's a licensed clinical professional counselor and certified addictions counselor holding a Master's of Arts degree in clinical counseling psychology from the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. Her focus centers on supporting individuals who identify as BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And Rayell is just one of the most, she's special. We've known each other in another life. I am convinced of it. So please enjoy my interview with Rayell Grayson. Are you a therapist stepping into a leadership role for the first time? Or maybe you've been in a leadership position for a while, but you're bumping up against new struggles. It's a transformative journey and one that can be deeply rewarding, but also filled with unique challenges. Many therapists find themselves in leadership positions because of their exceptional therapeutic skills. Yet leading, supervising, or managing others requires a whole new set of competencies not typically covered in graduate school. Our Authentic Leaders group is here to help you become the authentic and wholehearted leader you aspire to be. And we believe that the journey is best undertaken with the guidance of experienced mentors alongside fellow learners. The next cohort of Authentic Leaders will run November 2024 through June 2025, meeting once monthly on Fridays for 90 minutes. We'll also have some additional opportunities for connection and support along the way. Join me in this journey of self-discovery and leadership mastery, where you'll enhance your leadership skills and forge meaningful connections with fellow therapists committed to their own growth and the betterment of the therapy field. www.headheartbiztherapy.com/authentic-leaders-group. Hey, Rayell.
Hey, what's up, my girl?
So whenever my assistant goes in to make the reels from our recording, I'm going to ask her to make sure she gets those 10 seconds of silence when we were just making faces at each other.
Something told me to keep a straight face.
You should know me. I'm going to use all this against you.
Why am I entertaining this?
Because you love me.
Yeah, sometimes.
You won't tell. Why won't you tell anybody? You won't tell me. But everybody else is like, oh, Rayell loves you. It sounds just like my dad.
Look how what the universe does. Look how they reincarnated his ass and brought him back in the form of a black woman. You know what?
He would deserve that so much.
Gosh, him and his ancestors.
Yes.
Take that shit.
White supremacist comes back as a black woman. Could you imagine? I love it. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to the reason that we're here. Welcome to the Burnt Out Practice Owner.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. So you are probably a mythic figure to many people who haven't met you because I talk about you all the time. Much to your chagrin, I tell everyone how much I love you and how great you are. But for folks who listened to the first episode of the Burnt Out Practice Owner, I talked about our transition and me bringing you on at the end of 2019 is when we met. And then brought you on right at the beginning of January 2020. And then the pandemic happened and then all hell broke loose. But you still decided to buy the business anyway. And here we are almost exactly a year later after the ink was dry. And wanted to hear how it's been going for you.
Yeah, wow. You know, I tease Sarah all the time. I love Sarah so much. And she knows I talk so highly of her all of the time, everywhere I go.
But I never hear it, so I thank you.
Well, look, I just said it to the world right now. So
you did. I appreciate it.
Yes, I have grown. I'm evolving. Okay,
you are. I'm
evolving. I'm stepping into my vulnerable girl era. This year. Okay, I'm here. I'm arriving.
Okay.
And you know, I to be honest, I wouldn't be here in this business position, without you. And I'm. I'll be forever grateful for you and what you built and what I get to carry on. It's been really an honor the past year and a fun one. It's been, I think at the beginning, I was scared. I think you knew that in the beginning when you said, I need you to buy the whole business. And I said, no, we did a yes and no. I
didn't say it that way.
You said, I need you to take over. And I said, no, what do you need? Go back to treatment or something. Go take some more time. No. Go take some more time and come on back. And no, Sarah, Sarah saw something in me and Sarah knew something about me that I didn't know about myself. And, for that, I just hold a really just deep respect for you for that, to be honest.
Aww.
And, and I think just setting the practice up and setting me up with the proper structure and support made it much easier for me. Had I not had that in the beginning, there's no way in hell that I would be here probably saying that it's been a fun past year. Absolutely not. Shout out to the management team, Joanna, Benji, and Anna, and the rest of the Head Heart crew. But, the three of them have really been, at the backbone of how the business has continued to thrive the past year.
That's true. Let me correct one thing, though, because when I interviewed you for the first time and I said, I probably don't want to do this much longer, you said, I've always seen myself owning a business, so don't act like you didn't see that in yourself. Maybe I saw it more easily than you could picture it, right? You probably didn't know how you were going to get there, but you fucking saw it. Like, you know who you are.
Part of that is true, but I envisioned it. I always feel like, I'm one of those people where, I come in somewhere, you give me the instructions, you tell me what you need, and I'm going to do that thing and I'm going to do it real fucking good. Like,
That is what you did.
and that's always been who I am. And I've always been okay with working with somebody and working next to somebody to support what they've built, what they've dreamt of, all of those things. That's just my work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when I talked about, being a practice owner in the future, my envisionment was that I would be like retired. I was going to be like, like, I don't know, probably 70 or something like that. And I just kept a few, clients in the pocket that I saw, maybe 10 to 12 clients a week or something like that. I don't think I ever knew that I could own a group practice. I didn't know that that was something you could do. And to be honest, right, I didn't know any Black people at all who were practice owners coming from community mental health. I just didn't. I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't even know that was a possibility for me. So I think that's why I say, yes, I want to be a practice owner, but I didn't envision it this way.
I mean, we never do we? Like, if you're an Enneagram 1 though, so you probably do think you could plan your life out, but I don't. Like, we have the best laid plans, and then the universe knows what we actually need.
Who you telling? Oh, they sure do. They sure do. Wow, they sure do. Whoever's in that universe.
Well, let's talk about the pre-work that we did before the actual sale piece, because this is another question that I get a lot, is like, what did it take to sort of prepare you? And this is shout out to Aggie, our consultant, Aggie Chazinski, I think I pronounced it right, who we hired, I guess was at the beginning of 2022. I mean, the way that I look at it now in hindsight, a lot of the business stuff that I didn't know what I was doing in an organized way. I just kind of did it. But I think Aggie put more structure around what I did to help you understand what I did, and probably actually definitely help me understand what I had done, so that you felt like you knew more of what you were getting into. Would that be a fair assessment?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Aggie is literally, anytime I meet any type of woman identifying person who is a business owner and they say, I'm having a difficult time attracting the type of client that would be a good fit for my team. I'm having a difficult time managing this person, creating structure, right? Setting boundaries, expectations, all these things. I'm like, oh, I have somebody for you. And Aggie has...
Well, after me, right?
Well, of course, after you, Aggie has all of the business language and things that you need.
Exactly.
Right? Like, in order to protect your business, right? Aggie is so objective coming in because she is there to support the business. And I think having her come in and really put, pieces of that structure in place has, man, I feel like it's like shaped head, heart. So it just molded it. It was already molded, but I think now it's like a solid mold.
Yeah.
I know the type of employee that is a good fit here, right? I know how to communicate expectations and still leading from my heart and from a place of compassion, which are really, strong tenets of yours. They really weren't of mine, because I'm just like, listen, if this is the job that I gave you and you signed this thing, like, why aren't you doing your job? And so I have softened so much, that piece of me is still hidden in there. But I think that, having the proper language of coming from this place of being a business owner and being in leadership, how you communicate with your team, how you empower your team, how you to stand next to you in leadership, not follow you, I think is something that I am just really grateful for Aggie for supporting me with those pieces.
Well, I mean, since you brought this up, I think that you have more innate capacity to be a practice owner than I do. I think that my people pleasing, my fear of people liking me, my trusting people too much is what got me in trouble. And I think that that part of you that you said is a little bit harder, like just do your job. Like I actually think that that's a protective factor for a business owner because you're less likely to try to twist yourself into knots, therefore twisting the business into knots to like help one person.
Hmm.
So, I mean, can you talk a little bit about that? Like how you've softened, yet what helps you stay grounded in who you are? Because you're not, you and I talked about this before, you are not playing me. You are figuring out how to be your own version of softness and vulnerability, right? Like, just say some words around that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think about too being at the helm of a business and being in leadership, right? You work with so many different types of people. And I think that type of energy of just do your job is such an unfair statement when not everybody has the same exact capacity to really just be able to jump in and I think lead and do a job the way I did. And
Right.
for me, I would always lead from that place. Like, well, if I can do it, why can't you?
Yeah.
And, I think that was before, right? I was probably when I came onto the team, I really had this harsh kind
Yeah.
of, thought of why, if I can do it, why can't you? Right. And of course, my life,
Mm,
the things I've experienced in life that have got me to where I am and that allowed me to be able to get through a lot of those, difficult situations and feeling burnt out and feeling overworked and overran and all those things. I just pushed through because that's the only thing I knew how to do.
yeah.
And a lot of ways I didn't really have a choice.
Yeah.
So, just leading from that place. And obviously I always, credit NARM, I think for me, with stepping into this place of, my own agency, number one, my own capacity, widening my own capacity,
Mm-hmm.
doing my own work, being in therapy, being intentional about what I want, being intentional about how I show up. I really have wanted to be intentional about the type of boss that I am to people. And I think that is reflected in so many different ways of how you communicate with your team. I am, I said this to Sarah a couple of weeks ago. I said, oh, yeah, I'm going out to lunch, I'm going out to coffee and things like that. This really individual connection one on one
Mm-hmm.
with people on the team, I think has helped me lead in a way that I know makes sense to everybody on the team. I know a little bit about how you receive knowledge, how you hear me, what things you need to be able to grasp onto the material. And again, this is shout out to Aggie through some kind of, assessments and things she had folks on the team take that helped us learn how do they communicate? How do they
Mm-hmm.
receive information? And myself and the management team being really intentional about how we learned about all the different ways people communicate and receive information. And when you have some type of, not necessarily a one way of how you communicate or one
Right.
way of how your right people are receiving information, I know how to say it in different ways that I know this person is going to be able to receive it and this person is going to be able to receive it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that's really allowed me to connect with the people on the team in a different way. And I think it shows they get a piece of my vulnerability in such an intimate space and just one on one that I think that the way trust is built amongst the team looks different because that is how I've chosen to lead.
Yeah. Well, and if I were consulting for myself in the early days before I even brought you on, I would say I was doing too much and I didn't have capacity to sit with each person individually one on one. And I think that's a problem. I think that's part of I think that was part of my downfall where you're really excelling and you have made sure to make space for that. Whereas I was like, I got to be podcasting. I got to be teaching. I got to be going to this conference. I got to be doing that. Blah, 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 blah. And I mean, that's the curse of an entrepreneur that you want to do 1,000 trillion million things. But I think you're being really smart and keeping all your energy really with head heart at the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the one-on-one time. I get to learn things about people that, that I work with, that work with me in such a different way. And I think it makes it easier, honestly, when, folks are not meeting expectations that I can say, hey, let's chat. What's going on? Right. They're more inclined, I think, to trust that I can hold what they're going to tell me. And
Right.
that trickles down to other areas of the business and how they show up and how they perform and how they get their needs met, how they come to me or Benji, Joanna, or Anna to seek support or to seek anything that they may need. And they also spend time with folks one-on-one too. So it's just this really beautiful culture that, folks are intentional about how they show up in. And we've got just such an amazing group of folks that just, they wanted that as well. And they've been able to show up that way too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk about the actual transition and when the ink was dry, what happened? What happened for you? What was that like?
Oh, I cried. I was in Kansas City, Missouri. Actually, I was in Parkville, Missouri with my boyfriend, and we were at a coffee shop in Parkville.
Dennis.
Hey, boo. We were at a coffee shop in Parkville, Missouri, and I was like, oh my gosh, we were, actually in the car on the way there. I was like, man, I own a business. And he was just like, let's fucking go, babe. And I just remember like my heart, like just sink into my ass. Like, oh my gosh. Like, oh, like I just could not, it didn't seem real to me. It didn't seem real. And I had a moment where I kind of went into this phase, oh my God, I got to do all this stuff. I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. It was like a switch just went on. Like now something is yours and you're responsible for this thing. Like, how do you not fuck up this thing now?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not a parent, but I feel like it's almost like when people have a kid and they're so afraid of like, oh my gosh, I could do all these things to fuck up this thing. How do I keep this thing alive and surviving?
Yeah.
I just immediately went there because that's just what my brain does. Like, okay, what other processes and procedures do I need to get into place? What needs to be fixed here? What do I need to do this? What do I need to learn? My mom had a surprise party for me the same day.
She did? I don't think you told me that.
Tell you? Yeah. She had, actually, it might have been the very next day. And I was planning to go out to dinner with my dad, and he was like, oh, let me take you and to buy you a steak at the casino. And I don't even eat steak like that. And I was just like,
I'll eat it.
He's taking me to Gordon Ramsay's. I was like, all right, fuck it. I'll get a steak from, Gordon Ramsay's restaurant. And we go into this, kind of like a little bar or something right inside the casino. And I was like, where do you want to sit, Dad? And CeeLo Green was there, actually. Yeah.
Yes.
Sitting there. And I was like, where do you want to sit? My dad's like, oh, let's go in the back. And I was just like, no, it says it's closed back there. My dad's like, well, who cares? Like, they know me around here. And I was like, all right, man. And I go back and everybody's there. All my cousins, my aunts, everybody. And I just was crying, like Aww. That was such a beautiful way to step into being a business owner with having the support of, the people that I care about the most were there and so excited for me. And even though I was so incredibly nervous. And I still have Aggie. Aggie is still part of the crew. And, I get back to Chicago and schedule the first thing with Aggie. And you know what I learned? The first thing I learned that I did not know, Sarah didn't tell me this. I didn't know you had to pay taxes on payroll. That was like the first fucked up thing that I learned.
That's why, if any employees are listening, this is what the difference is between an IC and a W-2 is the employer pays those extra 5 to 10% of taxes. That's why you get a lower split.
Yes. And Aggie kept saying, oh, like, what's going on in the bank account? I was like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't look
got here.
Yeah. I'm like, I have no idea. She's like, but you've always had access to the bank account since you've been there. I was like, I have, but I don't look in there.
Yeah.
I never logged in to look at anything for what? What am I looking at? And, she said, okay, well, I need you to start logging in and looking at the bank account every day. See what's happening to the money, see where it's going, right? All these things. See how it fluctuates so much. See what happens when there's 3 payroll periods in a month. Right? See what happens here. And I would see payroll and I'm like, what's this extra, like, $12,000? She was like, taxes. I'm like, taxes for who? She's like, taxes for payroll. I said, that day I lost it. I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. And she was like, yeah, girl, I didn't know that. And I feel like I just continuously learn, things from just the financial piece of being a business owner that just shocked me, so much, right? Like, it's unbelievable. And fucking government. But that was like the biggest like shock to me. I think most of everything else that came with it is because, you and I had a lot of time together. So I feel like I got to see really the ins and outs of kind of, day-to-day structure of business and things like that. Behind the scenes is a bit more strategic.
Yeah.
Right. I've never really been a strategic thinker. And so I think that's a little bit more of kind of the difficult piece for me to land in strategy for your business,
Yeah.
right? In terms of like, oh, how do you maybe set your business apart? How else are you marketing your business, right? How is communication with management team? How are you communicating expectations regularly to your team, right? There's so many different moving pieces to all of it. But I think the paying taxes and payroll still to this day still stresses me out every time I look.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry I did not tell you that.
Yeah,
I assumed that was assumed.
you know, look what happened when you assume. Now look how we both do.
Now who's an ass? Me too.
Mm, yes, but I think everything else, it has been, it's been fun. I've had a couple of people who've left the team as well, since I've taken over and have went on to start their own practices, which is super cool. And there's still, some communication with those folks and people on the team. And, I think it's widening the network and the community of being able to refer people to,
Mm-hmm.
that you know how they practice, which is cool. And I think, the hardest part is, as maybe you all don't know this about me, but I like control. I like to know things. I like to know how I can prepare,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when you're in this position, you cannot. And I think that is the biggest thing that I have not been able to digest fully is that, tomorrow somebody could tell me that they're deciding to leave the practice, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, man, you have to look into hiring somebody that sometimes shifts the culture of the team, right?
Yep.
And all these other things that come with having a new hire, onboarding, time you have to spend getting them prepared, getting their caseload built, right? Adding on to the extra amount of taxes I have to pay per month. I'm kidding.
I know.
But there's always something, and no possible way to be prepared for that. There always being something. At least for me, I haven't felt that.
I would say that was also a big challenge of mine too, because it always felt like I would get everything settled and everybody would be on the same page and we'd be feeling really good and caseloads are full. And then somebody gets pregnant or somebody got to leave for this reason or there was always something. And I think if you're a person who really needs certainty, then being a practice owner is not for you because when you're working with humans, there is no predictability.
At all. Absolutely not. No. And I will say this is on the topic of just, taking over a business. Another big concern I had, was being a Black business owner, being a Black woman, leading a team of predominantly white folks, what that meant, what that looked like, how I actually was going to display vulnerability. I remember saying
Mhm.
that to Sarah, I was like, I don't know how to be vulnerable. Like you can come into a meeting and you can just drop into that. I can't do that. I
Mhm.
can't do that. And she kept saying, you're going to find your way. You're going to find what works for you and how you do that and what capacity you do that. And I think for me, the one-on-ones has been the way that I've been able to do that for the
That's
team
awesome.
to see me in that way. And so it's not only just me getting to connect with the people on the team, but it's them getting to see my heart, maybe not necessarily in the group setting. And so that was something that in the beginning was really, it was actually terrifying to me. I'm like, all these white people gonna quit. They can be like, nah, I can't work for this lady.
Mm.
She's too harsh. She's too demanding. She needs too much of this. She needs too many things. And truth be told, they have just been the greatest group of folks who have just celebrated everything that I've done and have been right alongside me. So I'm lucky. I'm really lucky.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sure, part of it is luck, but I think you have made better hiring decisions than I made. Part of that is thanks to Aggie, but also you're trusting her, right? Because
Mhm.
I would always undermine myself by being like, oh, I see this red flag, but it's workable. Like, I think I can work this through. And it's like, there's two people in this relationship. Why, if I see a red flag, why am I not honoring myself with that? So I feel like you've made a lot of hard choices with that. And in terms of the vulnerability too, I think the other thing that I know very well about you is that you don't trust easily. And so I wonder if these one-on-ones are also your way to build trust with each team member that they see you as a Black woman and as a business owner. There's so much complexity in holding all of that. like everybody on the team now has really risen to respect you in such a deep way where, oh, this is the other, because we talked about this when we were playing with plants. I think part of my downfall is not that I have tried to position myself in this way, but because of the podcast, because of my just people know me in the field, I am somehow put on this pedestal, and it's like people are my fans when I always try to make personal relationships, but it doesn't always land that way. And so because of that, I think that created distance between me and some of the team members where you don't walk around the world the same way I do. I'm of course like showboating all the time because that's just I'm a performer. It's what I do. But I do think that was to my detriment where you don't have that same barrier that folks need to get over to see you as a human.
Oh, absolutely. Right. I mean, I think about there's still folks on the team that, right, that came to know you through the podcast. And so they were already enamored with you and felt, a certain way about you, or had, been a former student of yours.
Right.
And so I feel people already came in almost with this like, oh my gosh, expectation of
Yes.
being close to you in a way without, right, you even having kind of a say so in that in some way.
Right.
But people really, I think, being drawn to the work that you do in the podcast and in the classroom and, probably speaking engagements as well, that they were like, I just want to be around that. I want to be near that. I want to learn from her. I want to be around her. I want to know her. I want to say that I know her.
Right.
And, I think that I didn't, of course, I didn't have that. Right. And so it's nice that coming into that, I don't have people, really saying like, I want to come there because I know this thing that you do outside of there. Right. And I think that's
it may happen after a while.
Listen, y'all better stay away from me. Come on. I'm teasing.
Because you do now, you have a reputation in the field. People know you. And whenever I say Rayell now, like it's almost like reversed, right? Like you would say when we started at the beginning, like everybody knows you and everybody loves you. And now I'm having that experience.
Yeah.
Everybody knows and loves you.
I love that. I just love connecting and meeting people in the field, to be honest. Like it's a gift to get to do what we do. And I really enjoy getting to know other business owners, practice owners, other clinicians. I'm not saying that for people to be all up in my inbox and things, but if I see you at a networking event and things, chances are I'll be like, yeah, what, let's connect over coffee, right? Tell me about your business. Tell me I can support what you're doing. And I love that there's just room for everybody here to be able to do that. I love that. I actually got an email from somebody right before coming in here, and it just said, hey, you really are a special person. People love you. And they forward just such a kind message that somebody I got to meet and interact with for just a brief moment at a networking event. It was just so nice to receive that message and to know that I am having some being kind to people and that having an impact on people. I'm, grateful that people are receiving that in the way that I'm intending to deliver it.
Yeah. Well, and didn't we talk about my philosophy of networking and marketing when we first started? What did I say? Because you always remember some really funny things that I say.
Yeah, you just make friends.
Yeah.
That's what you said. Just make friends. I'm like, girl, I don't be making friends with people like that. But okay, I'm already a social person, so I didn't think that, networking, I'm like, that's not really going to be a struggle of mine. You can throw me in a room with anybody in the world and I'm going to be okay. I can make it work. And, even the very first networking event that we ever went to, I've developed a really great relationship, with that business owner. Yep. And I've kept in contact and folks that attended that networking event. And so I feel like that was just my start of getting out in the community and being able to get to know people. I wish more people felt the way about networking the way I feel about it. I'm doing it every week. I'm out here.
I mean, don't you want to make more friends? That's always how I feel, but I guess not.
I like to have referrals for my clients and for clients here too. The amount of therapists that are sending emails every day. Hey, does anybody know a psychiatrist? Hey, does anybody know a doctor that, that is inclusive, right? Or folks that, provide a specific service. Does anybody know a therapist who's X, Y, and Z? I'm like, how are you ever going to get to know who they are if you don't put yourselves in rooms to find out who they are?
Right.
You have to. And to be honest, that's like business 101. If you ever want to own a business, best advice Sarah ever gives to network. And I think in a lot of ways of how you even built this practice was through your relationships.
100%.
And what I've come in and done is just sustain those relationships and continue to create and build those. And that has just been, that's the gold. That's it.
Yep.
That's been the gold.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to wrap this up, and this is probably a bigger question than we can end on, but I don't care. I'm going to ask it anyway. The number one question I always get asked is, how did you find her? How did you find Rayell? And I say magic, but I'm curious if you have any thoughts for people who were in the position that I was in before I met you. What do you think practice owners could be doing to attract somebody like you who may be coming from community mental health and is ready for like a different vibe, maybe wants to own a business? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, gosh, that's so hard. People ask me that too. How did Sarah find you? How did you two find each other? Right. And I always say, like, the universe, it was meant to be. The universe connected us, right? And a good friend of mine sent me the job posting that she put out into the universe. I didn't just have access to that job posting, right? It just happened. I was ready to transition out of community mental health, and I was fortunate enough to be in a supervisory role there to, I think, that really supported me with all the admin pieces. But I think a lot of, who I am and how I work is just who I am. That stems from my upbringing, that stems from how I was raised. For those of you that don't know, I'm the oldest of 7 siblings. And so I think about, like, oh man, I was born into this world bossing people around in some way,
That's true.
right? Like I came in here and then all of a sudden I just didn't have a choice. It was like I had to be in some type of leadership role when the next sibling came. And then that just continued to refine over the years of my life. And, credit to my parents for that too, right? Of how you show up and how you show up with kindness, how you show up with love, you show up with all these good things, and you put that type of energy out into the world, and you will only attract those things, right? That law of attraction. I just put good energy out, and somehow it tends to just find me. Mm-hmm. But I think that, community mental health is really a really great start because you get the opportunity, I think, like Sarah had with me, and to kind of molding this person into what you need and what you're looking for your business. Especially people who are probably in some type of leadership role in the community mental health world, right? Somebody who's a director or somebody who's a supervisor and they've gotten years of experience and they're looking to transition out of there. I'm not telling people to go into community mental health centers and be like, hey, are you ready to leave?
Right. Let me go poach you.
Right. Yeah. But are you connected with the community mental health world and folks who are employed there in what capacity? Maybe people who are also maybe in a hospital setting too, right? Mm-hmm. I think it really falls back on networking, getting the word out, meeting people, connecting with people. You'll be so surprised who you come across and interact with.
Yep.
You'll be so damn surprised. But for those of you that are looking to find Rayell, she's out there. I promise you, she's there. If I exist, and another one exists.
It's true. It's true. Though you are unique and special, you're probably not the only one who's as good at what you do as you are.
I don't toot my own horn, but there's somebody out there.
Well, let's say hi to your mom before we go, because I know she's listening.
Mama Chris, I love you, Mom.
What's up? I love you too.
Yeah, she always says, tell Sarah I said hi.
That's exactly what she sounds like too. So yeah.
She does. My mom loves Sarah, y'all. She loves Sarah so much.
Oh my God. I love her right back for creating you, bringing you into my life. And I tell people this too. You also saved my life in a very literal sense. If I had not had you during the pandemic, I probably would have thrown in the towel. So I am really, I'm not only am I grateful to you for buying the business, for being able to help me keep the business afloat in 2020, but also the way that you and I navigated a really fucked up year for however many reasons, not just business wise, but also racial wise. Like, you and I have always been able to be really honest and transparent with each other. And that relationship has been such a treasure to me. So I just want to say that publicly.
Yeah. You know what? You actually talked to me one time about my best friend. You were talking to me about trust. And I said, I don't trust too many white folks. I trust white folks, but it takes a minute for me to get there. And my childhood best friend, we've been friends since we were like 5 years old. And she's a white woman. And, I was like, that relationship just grew into something just unbelievable. And I feel that way about my relationship with Sarah, that, I got the opportunity and I trusted myself to trust her too, and to be open to that. And that's just was, it's also been a beautiful gift for me as well.
You're telling everyone you love me. Oh my God. I feel so special.
Oh, boy, this is over, y'all. We got to go.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for doing this. I think a lot of people are going to be really excited to hear directly from you, since I talk about you all the time.
Yeah, happy to come back anytime. Y'all hear from me again. I'll be back.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the special Burnt Out Practice Owner series. If you want more information about today's guest, go to our website at www.headheartbiztherapy.com/podcast. Thanks to the Creative Imposter Studios for editing, and I'm your host, Sarah Bueno. Until next time, bye-bye.